And when I look at this Lions team, I look at their offense, they're balanced, they can pass the ball effectively, they have plenty of weapons on that offense when you talk about Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. And then you have the running backs that they have in Sam Laporta. And Jared Goff is somebody that I'm gaining a lot of respect for. I believe the NFC Championship game is going to be the Lions versus the Rams. Where they play that game, I don't know. But I think that that's going to be the NFC Championship this year. Baker Mayfield did not play well against the Detroit Lions. And when we talk about Baker Mayfield as an NFL MVP frontrunner, I hold him to a very high standard. The Seahawks are such a well-run organization, and especially over the past few years, some of the moves that they've made has really shaped the direction of their franchise and where they're going as a team. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for October 21st, 2025. And on today's episode, I'm going to be going over my reactions from the Monday Night Football games. But before we get into the episode, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure to check out all of the Kretschman media shows. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. It's on the homepage of this channel, so please make sure to go check that out. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. I want to start the episode off by talking about the Detroit Lions because I was very impressed, especially what they did defensively against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that if you're asking me, right now, I believe the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC. I thought that a few weeks ago after they beat the Ravens. I wasn't wavered from that take after they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, who might be the best team in football. I know their record may not say it, but they might be, like when we look at them going forward. And yeah, the Lions lost to them, but the Chiefs aren't in the NFC, they're in the AFC. And when I look at this Lions team, I look at their offense, they're balanced, they can pass the ball effectively, they have plenty of weapons on that offense when you talk about Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. And then you have the running backs that they have in Sam Laporta. And Jared Goff is somebody that I'm gaining a lot of respect for. And you have the offensive line. You know, I just think that this offense, because they're so balanced, they're going to give everybody problems. Anybody that they play, they're going to give them problems because they just don't have that many tells, right? Like their play action game is fantastic. Jared Goff knows how to operate that offense at such a high level. There is such a level of understanding of the offense, even with a first-year offensive coordinator. And I want to say this. I've gained a lot of respect for Jared Goff this season. Going into the season, I had a completely different take of Jared Goff than I have right now. And I know he didn't light it up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I got that. I understand that. But I've really come to appreciate what Jared Goff provides to this Detroit Lions football team. When you talk about being able to have another offensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, and this offense is still one of the very best in the NFL. He operates the offense at such a high level. Rhythm, timing, delivers the ball on time consistently, just in and out, being a good leader, being a guy that guys in the locker room can look towards, making big plays down the field. This guy, to me, is somebody I've gained a lot of respect for. I personally think that when you look at that division, I think that he's the best quarterback in that division, if you ask me. I think he's better than Jordan Love. No doubt about it, better than Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. And I personally think, I didn't think this going into the year, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. I'm ready to go there with Jared Goff. I was very unimpressed by what I saw last year in the playoffs from him because that was a bad performance. But the fact that he has a new offensive coordinator and there's not much of a drop-off, to me shows that the one constant with the Detroit Lions when it comes to their offense has been Jared Goff. And being able to switch offensive coordinators and not have that much of a drop-off, if any drop-off, that to me is impressive. And like, yeah, they have good weapons on this team, especially like on the outside, right? But it's not like the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Like this offense is better than the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not even close. But they don't have that type of artillery on their offense. But why is that the case? Because they have a quarterback that can make things happen, that can operate an offense, that stays on time, all of those good things that you want to see from a quarterback, delivers the ball on all three levels of the field. Every blade of grass is threatened because of Jared Goff. I've gained a lot of respect for him. And yesterday, yeah, I get it. It wasn't like an amazing performance. But I just look over the course of the season and over the course of his entire career. I said going into this year, he's had McVay and Ben Johnson. Like, those are the two best offensive minds in football. Two of the best offensive minds. Not the two best. Two of the best, right? But, man, he's really starting to change my mind. And credit to him. Honestly, credit to him. I think that the Detroit Lions can win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. And I did not have that opinion going into the season. But his play has been so consistent that I have to give him credit where it's due. He's been impressive. And I just think this team as a whole, like when you look at their defense, I mean, they were out Branch and Terry and Arnold, and you wouldn't have been able to tell yesterday what they were doing on the back end there. And it's not like Tampa Bay is an easy team to deal with the receivers that they have and the way Baker Mayfield's playing. It's not like that's an easy offense to deal with. But Kelvin Shepard is really dialing it up there. Obviously, Aaron Glenn got that head coaching job last year, and I think their defense is better than it was last year. Now, I think that the talent is better, right? I will say that. I will give Aaron Glenn that grace, but man, I'm just so impressed with what they did on the back end yesterday. And Aiden Hutchinson, man, he looks good. He looks really good. And that defensive line as a whole, I mean, you're starting to see contributions from guys like Al-Qadim Muhammad and Tyrus Wheat, the former Cowboys legends over there. Where's the Cowboys helmet? Those are guys that played on the Cowboys and they weren't really anything. And then, especially Al-Qadim Muhammad went to the Detroit Lions, and it's impressive. Their defensive tackles are good. I mean, Aleem McNeil's back. That's huge for them. That is huge for them. Aleem McNeil is like a difference-making one tech. He's the type of guy that could put his that you could put on the ear hole of that center, and he's gonna choke the run. Not only that, I actually think he's a pretty decent pass rusher as well. So adding him back with a Tyleik Williams, with DJ Reader, and the rest of the offensive line or defensive line, when you talk about the edges they have with Aiden Hutchinson, yeah. This is a team that can make waves. If you ask me right now what I think the NFC Championships game is going to be, I believe the NFC Championship game is going to be the Lions versus the Rams. Where they play that game, I don't know. But I think that that's going to be the NFC Championship this year. Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And make sure to go check out the rest of the shows on the Kretschman Media Network. They're on the homepage of my page. Make sure to go check those out. So we have to talk about the team that lost this game, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the reason why I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost this game was because Baker Mayfield did not play well. Baker Mayfield did not play well against the Detroit Lions. And when we talk about Baker Mayfield as an NFL MVP frontrunner, I hold him to a very high standard. So when he has performances like this where he was missing open receivers, he was not accurate in this game, I'm going to call him out. On top of the fact that he was facing a Detroit Lions defense that was missing a lot of pieces in that secondary. Now, I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's a very good quarterback, right? He's definitely a top 10 quarterback. But he's closer to 10 than he is to 5. I have him in that 8 to 10 range. And I feel like a lot of people have a much higher opinion on Baker Mayfield because he's exceeding expectations compared to him being actually what people think he is. He's exceeding expectations. People thought he was a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. But that does not mean he is a great quarterback or an elite quarterback. He's just a very good quarterback. And I respect Baker Mayfield for all of the offensive coordinators he's been through over the past few years and to continue to play at a high level. It's absolutely respectable. Like, I respect that big time. But at the same time, he's not better than Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Prescott, Stafford, Burrow. I don't think he's better than Sam Darnold. I don't think he's better than Drake May. He might be better than Jared Goff. But he's like in that 9, 10, I haven't met 9 or 10. I feel like that's an accurate place to put him. Herbert is another guy that you could talk about. But I think that's fair to put him there. And look, Baker Mayfield is a guy that I have so much respect for. I really do. And I don't want this to come off as me slandering Baker Mayfield and not saying that, hey, he can't be a guy that could potentially win a Super Bowl for this Buccaneers team. Because he can, right? Like, if this Buccaneers team is as good as I think they could potentially be, Baker Mayfield is a good enough quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with him. And I honestly think that that's the question that fans need answered, right? And if the answer to that question is, yes, you feel confident he can win a Super Bowl for you, then that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? Like, wherever you rank him, if you rank him in the top 10, you rank him in the top 5, cool, doesn't matter. Can he win a Super Bowl for you? And if the answer is, I think he can, then as an organization especially, you need to make sure that you give him the proper pieces and an adequate enough roster around him to try and make that happen. But going back to the MVP talk, the reason why I never bought into Baker Mayfield being the MVP frontrunner is because I actually watched Baker Mayfield play all 6 of these games. And in the first 4 games of the season, he was good. He was not great. He was not MVP level good. In the Seattle and San Francisco games, he was fantastic. He was MVP level good in those games. But if we're talking about an MVP through the course of 6 games leading up to this game, I don't need you playing at an MVP level for 2 games. I need you playing at that for like 3 to 4 games at least, because there's other quarterbacks in the NFL that are playing at MVP levels consistently, like damn near every game. Doc's playing at an MVP level damn near every game. Stafford's playing at an MVP level damn near every game. Mahomes is playing at an MVP level damn near every game. Those to me were the NFL MVP frontrunners going into this game, and those to me are the MVP frontrunners coming out of this game. And then if you want to, I personally think Drake May has a better case to win MVP than Baker Mayfield. I think Drake May's been better than Baker Mayfield this year. Baker Mayfield would be at 5 for me in terms of NFL MVP voting odds, right? Like, I would put him at 5, and I would feel very good about that. And I'd be like, yeah, no, he deserves to be there, because you have other quarterbacks that have not played at an MVP level that, people have a lot of respect for. Like, Josh Allen to me has not been good compared to Josh Allen standards. Baker Mayfield this year has been better than Josh Allen. Baker Mayfield this year has been very good. But and I will say this, new offensive coordinator, injuries that he's dealt with on his roster, and for him to play at a very good level like he's been playing at, that's impressive. That is absolutely impressive. And I hate to sound like, yeah, but, because I'm such a fan of Baker Mayfield, but he's exceeding expectations. Don't confuse exceeding expectations with him all of a sudden being an elite quarterback. He's not that. To me, when you look at the elite quarterbacks in the NFL right now, today, you look at Mahomes, Lamar, Jackson, Allen, even though Allen's not playing elite this year. So let me start that over. You have Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Prescott, Stafford. Those are the 5 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Those are guys that year in and year out play at an extremely high level, that lead top offenses in the NFL and have sustained over a period of time playing at a high level. To me, Burrow, he has to stay on the field. That's been a problem. Like, he's been missing like months worth of games, like for the past few years here. I can't have that. Absolutely cannot have that. And look at you as an elite quarterback. To be an elite quarterback, you got to be on the field. And Joe Burrow has had a propensity of not being on the field. And that's just the way I feel about it. But Baker Mayfield, very good. And I because I know there's going to be Bucs fans in the comments. I like Baker Mayfield. I really like Baker Mayfield. But he's not an MVP frontrunner. He should never have been in those conversations. Don't confuse exceeding expectations and very good to great and elite. Because there's been quarterbacks that have been great and elite throughout the first 6 weeks of the season consistently. Baker Mayfield hasn't been that consistently. He's been that in spots. And to be honest with you, when his team has needed it in a lot of these games, he's come up big. But again, when you look at a lot of those games, when you look at a lot of the games that they won in the first 4 weeks, like it's not like he played great in those games. Like, he played good enough to keep his team in the game in defensive showdowns, and then he would make a play at the end of the game, which I give him credit for. But that, to me, making a few plays at the end of the game and just playing decent throughout the course of the game, that doesn't make you an MVP frontrunner, in my personal opinion. So, hey, maybe he can work his way back into that conversation, but just off what we've seen so far, I don't see it. Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And make sure to go check out the rest of the shows on the Kretschman Media Network. They're on the homepage of my page. Make sure to go check those out. So I want to talk about the other Monday Night Football game, and that is the Seahawks versus the Texans. I want to start off with the winning side, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are such a well-run organization, and especially over the past few years, some of the moves that they've made has really shaped the direction of their franchise and where they're going as a team. You talk about in 2023, in that draft, they drafted Devon Witherspoon, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Zach Charbonnet. Those are three highly productive players for their football team. In 2024, they hired Mike McDonald as their head coach. They then went in 2025 and moved off of Geno Smith and signed Sam Darnold, while also hiring Quint Kubiak to be their offensive coordinator. Those are moves that have really made it look like the Seattle Seahawks could potentially be a threat in the NFC. They could win this division. They could cause some real problems for any team in the NFC because of the fact that they have a defense that plays at a very high level. They have an offense that has a quarterback that's playing at a high level and an offensive coordinator who is schematically giving them an advantage. But not only that, they have a lot of weapons on that offense. When you talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp, you have the running backs that you have. You have the quarterback that you have. It's impressive what they've done. And for them to put up 27 points on the Houston Texans, I get it. The Houston Texans are not a good football team. That defense is phenomenal for the Houston Texans. And the Seattle Seahawks were moving the ball all night on them. Jackson Smith-Njigba was incredible. He is as unguardable as they come. Jackson Smith-Njigba very well might be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Like, he's getting there. I'm ready to go there. This is his second year in a row with extremely high level production. And not only that, like, one of my favorite receivers in the NFL, who I think is a top 3 receiver in the game, is CeeDee Lamb. You compare what Jackson Smith-Njigba and CeeDee Lamb were doing in their third years respectively. Jackson Smith-Njigba, like, year 3, is a much better player than CeeDee Lamb was year 3, in my personal opinion. I wouldn't say much better. I would just say better. Like, that third year for CeeDee Lamb was very good, no doubt about it. But this year for Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's on pace to have, what, like 1,800 yards this year? That's flat out insane. That's insanity. Like, he is there. He's up there. I don't look at him as just an Amon-Ra St. Brown type, who, by the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown, fantastic football player. I think that Jackson Smith-Njigba can do a little more than Amon-Ra St. Brown. You can line him out wide. You can line him in the slot. You can move him across the formation. And, you know, here's the thing. We talk about these, you know, receivers nowadays. You hear all these people say, oh, I love this receiver because he's an X receiver. He can line up out wide. Like, the NFL has shifted. The NFL is more dependent on these Z receivers that you motion and shift across the formation than they are of the X receiver that's stationary, that just, you know, hey, win one-on-one to the outside. Like, yeah, those guys are extremely valuable, no doubt about it. But these Z receivers and what a lot of these offensive coordinators want to do with them, I think that they are just as, if not more valuable than the X receivers in today's NFL because of what offensive coordinators do nowadays. And that's where Jackson Smith-Njigba comes into play. I mean, that young man can play at a really high level. And the connection that him and Sam Darnold have is special. Sam Darnold is, what, 28, 29 years old? I think he's 28 if I'm not mistaken, because he and I are the same age. I mean, that was a bargain of a contract that they got Sam Darnold for. Like, you have to think about it like this. The Minnesota Vikings made a franchise-altering move, moving on from Sam Darnold. and the Seahawks made a franchise-altering move, signing Sam Darnold. Look at the direction of both of those organizations. The Minnesota Vikings, while yes, they are talented outside of the quarterback, they have a quarterback problem, which shows you, like, Minnesota, what in the hell were you thinking moving on from Sam Darnold for J.J. McCarthy? You have a franchise quarterback, you have a franchise quarterback. Just accept it, and whatever moves that you made, move on. Like, that's why I commended the Arizona Cardinals back in 2019. They drafted Josh Rosen in the top 10, and they said, we think Kyler Murray is going to be better than him. And they drafted Kyler Murray. Now, whatever your opinion on Kyler Murray is, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, I commend when NFL front offices say, okay, we used a high pick for this guy. We traded assets to get him. And we're going to move on because we feel good about the solution that we found. They had a solution. Sam Darnold should be a Minnesota Viking right now. But they decided to move on. And we see what the team that decided to sign Sam Darnold is doing and the team that decided to move on from him is doing. One team is one of the best teams in the NFC and the other team isn't going to make the playoffs. Those decisions come back to haunt you. And I cannot get over how well run the Seahawks have been. I just can't get over it. I'm such a fan of Mike McDonald. I'm such a fan of the leadership on this football team. I admire what they've been doing. And this team is going to give a lot of teams problems. They are. And especially with Sam Darnold and his contract that he has, you're going to be able to add more pieces to that football team. This is a team that for the next 5 years, minimum, is going to be a problem in the NFC. Salute to them. I'm impressed. I think that's awesome what they did over this offseason, what they've been doing over the past few offseasons. Consistently stacking big-time move after big-time move. Credit to them. Hope you guys are enjoying the episode. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. And make sure to go check out the rest of the shows on the Kretschman Media Network. They're on the homepage of my page. Make sure to go check those out. So let's talk about the team that lost this game, and that is the Houston Texans. I feel bad for CJ Stroud. I really do. And I'm not like a huge CJ Stroud fan. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. But I understand where CJ Stroud is coming from with how disinterested he looks in what's going on with this team. Because this team is not taking CJ Stroud seriously. And it's very unfortunate to see that. Their offensive line is awful. It's awful. And what did they do over the offseason? They traded Laramie Tunsil. Now, look, I don't live and die by PFF grades. I don't. Laramie Tunsil has an 87 pass block grade from PFF. Means he's probably a lot better than what the Houston Texans have right now on their offensive line. This offseason, what they need to do, forget adding to your defense, forget adding receivers, forget adding running backs, forget all of that. Don't make a single move until you improve your offensive line. Now, I get it. Free agency takes place before the draft. I get that. But you're not going to be able to draft 5 starting offensive linemen. You can sign starting offensive linemen in free agency. Starting offensive linemen. Not great, but at least quality starters. They don't have quality starters on this offensive line. It's awful. This offensive line sucks. It sucks. It's awful. So this offseason, I don't want to see you prioritizing receivers. I don't want to see you prioritizing defensive backs or defensive linemen. All those positions are important. No doubt about it. You need to keep your quarterback upright. It's like actually a surprise to me that CJ Stroud is still alive at this point. This offensive line gives up so many quick pressures. I'm not a huge CJ Stroud guy, but even I look at that and I say, what do you expect the guy to do? Seriously, what do you expect this guy to do? He's getting pressure in his face immediately. He goes into games uncomfortable. Why does he go into games uncomfortable? Because of the fact that he knows his offensive line isn't going to protect him. It's a tough place to be in as a quarterback. It's a tough place to be in when you know, as soon as I snap this ball's got to be out in 2 seconds or I'm getting hit. And those hits start to pile up. We saw it with Andrew Luck. We're seeing it right now with Joe Burrow, and we're starting to see it with CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, I think, is a franchise quarterback. Are you going to pay him the $60 million in the offseason? I think you'd be crazy to do that at the current moment. Because right now, I think what the Houston Texans need to do is they need to, this offseason, forget everything else and just build on that offensive line. And if they build that offensive line and they still continue to see the struggles, to be honest with you, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It's not just the offensive line. They need an offensive overhaul. They need to build a legitimate run game. If I'm Houston, I'm looking at the staffs of Indianapolis and Dallas to try and find a legit run game, to see if I can add, because now what you're seeing in the NFL is you're seeing these offensive coordinators that were former offensive line coaches. But here's the thing with the Houston Texans and the reason why they can't make that happen. You know, the Cowboys can hire Clayton Adams to be their offensive coordinator because Brian Schottenheimer is their play caller, right? So what Clayton Adams is he's a glorified offensive line coach. They brought him in here mainly for the run game in Dallas. They brought him in there for the run game, right? They need to find somebody along those lines. But unfortunately, they have a defensive-minded head coach who I think is awesome, by the way. I love DeMeco Ryans. And if they have any thought of moving on from that guy, they need to get that thought out of their mind immediately. That guy has changed the direction for that organization. But the front office needs to do a better job of building this offense so that it's sustainable. It is not sustainable to ask CJ Stroud, who is mainly a pocket passer, to stay in a pocket that's going to consistently be as muddy as the ones that he sees in Houston. I mean, like, what was their idea? What was their plan? What was their plan this offseason? What was their plan this offseason for their offensive line that was bad last year? Their offense, or their plan was, we'll put, you know, we bring in a new offensive coordinator. We put more on CJ Stroud's plate in terms of pre-snap stuff. That is franchise malpractice. Whoever the owner is of the Houston Texans, needs to look at Nick Caserio and say, what in the world are you doing with my organization right now? You thought it was a good idea to get rid of Laramie Tunsil and not bring in anybody else for this offensive line. Yeah, you drafted Avante Ursere. Cool. Still a bad offensive line. You're a bad offensive line with Laramie Tunsil, and you're an even worse offensive line without him. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get what their plan was. Whatever their plan was, it was malpractice, and I think that's a fireable offense, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Nick Caserio's backed into a franchise quarterback, right? Like, he took advantage of the Panthers not taking CJ Stroud. Because let's be 100% honest here. CJ Stroud is the reason why Nick Caserio still has a job with that organization. Because from reports, it looked like the Houston Texans wanted to draft Bryce Young in that draft process. But they couldn't draft Bryce Young. Why? Because he was already off the board. Imagine if the Panthers actually did the right thing and took CJ Stroud instead of Bryce Young. He wouldn't have a job. Nick Caserio wouldn't have a job right now if it wasn't for CJ Stroud. He backed into CJ Stroud, and he looks at him as the type of quarterback that can overcome the deficiencies of an offense, which I do think CJ Stroud can do, but not to the point where you have the worst offensive line in the league. He cannot overcome that. As a matter of fact, 98% of the quarterbacks in the NFL, if that, can overcome that. So it was a flawed process that they had. It was a flawed philosophy, and they're seeing firsthand what that meant for their organization. So that's going to be it for the CEO Sports Show. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.